Thank you, Brahmaprana. We're old friends. We go back a long way. I started my monastic life in Southern California, and the Swami Swananandaji was someone with tremendous zeal for spreading Vedanta and tried to start centers all over. And somehow I got sent to Washington, D.C., and Brahmaprana got sent here. So we're doing our best to keep up that tradition that Swami Swanaji started. The talk, or the series of talks that I'll be giving goes back to a question that I was asked once about speaking on the topic of obstacles in meditation. And I thought it was too negative. I wanted to give it a little positive spin. So I came up with this idea to talk about practical hints on meditation. And whenever we speak about meditation, we know that people have their own meditation practice. That many have taken initiation and have very specific instruction. They're very comfortable with what they do. That's why these are hints that if any of this is helpful, good. If some, because very often people feel that, yeah, let me not deviate from what I've been doing for many years. These are things that can be uh, helpful maybe in a secondary sense, that when the mind wanders, it'll give us a little uh, context for the practice of meditation. So these are things that I found helpful in my own spiritual practice. So I'd like to share some of these ideas with everyone. The question of obstacles, first of all, we all know the main obstacles in meditation. And for most of us, it's the restless mind. So this is a common thing. The reason why we emphasize this is that no one should feel that there's something wrong with them, that meditation, everyone else can meditate, but I can't meditate. That this is something that is a common problem for everyone. This is the nature of the mind. The mind does not like to remain still and quiet. The mind does not like to do what we tell it to do. I sometimes say the mind has a mind of its own, and there's not much we can do about it. We can uh, practice what's called abhyasa yoga, where we keep pulling the mind back, and it goes. There are many techniques and everything, but I find that one of the most important aspects of meditation is context, and to have some idea of what we're trying to achieve in meditation, how we go about it, and uh, anyhow, that'll be the main theme that we'll get to transform meditation from some mental type of activity, process, into something that we feel is really spiritual, that we're entering into a spiritual realm at the time of meditation. So this restlessness of the mind, this is the number one thing. And second thing is that if by chance we feel that the mind is getting a little bit quiet and we're getting a little bit concentrated in everything, then second obstacle is that we enter into a state which is called laya. First is called a vikshepa. This is a mind that gets restless, jumps all over. And this laya, it may seem like we've entered into a very deep state of meditation, but it's something closer to falling asleep. We're not really sleeping, but somehow the time will pass. We'll think that we had a very nice meditation, but there's no clarity. That some torpidity, sometimes they say, uh, and we very often aren't aware of this. And that's because the mind is not awake enough to be aware that it's entered into that state. So this is a second thing that may happen. Uh, Better than the first, we feel at least that for some period of time we forgot about the body, we forgot about the world, everything else, that we entered into some mood or some type of state. But it's not exactly what we're trying to achieve in meditation. And then, of course, we often feel that we're not making progress in meditation. We feel that there's no great attraction for meditation, that it's just hard work. We're just sitting, we're trying to force the mind to think about something. So all of these ideas come up. We wonder, what are we achieving in meditation? This question comes up: what is the relationship between meditation and what we're trying to achieve in spiritual life? The goal of, so how do we see the practice as leading directly to what we're trying to achieve in meditation and spiritual life in general? So these questions may come up, and if we can solve these for ourselves, if we can find some type of mental space that we can enter into, that we feel that we're really entering into a different realm at the time of meditation, and everything internal and deep within, and we can start to understand how this process of meditation can directly take us to some type of higher spiritual experience. So these are some of the things I want to start with. There are many other things that we'll get to, many other ways that we can keep the mind from wandering. But to me, this is one of the most important aspects of meditation. That why do we meditate? Now, many people have different reasons for meditation. Some just for calming the mind and concentrate, physical health and everything. That's not the question that I'm asking. I'm asking the question from a spiritual point of view. I'm assuming we all practice meditation because we're seeking something higher. But to ask ourselves, why? Is it somehow more beneficial than prayer or japa or other spiritual practices? What is the link? What is the connection? So this gives us some conviction, if we have some context for this, some conviction that what we're doing, there's a direct cause and effect relationship between our spiritual practice and what we're trying to achieve. So we see this theme of the restless mind. This comes up, of course, in Bhagavad Gita, that Arjuna will ask that question of Sri Krishna, that how is it possible to calm the mind? Now, Arjuna is considered to be, we can say, almost the ideal spiritual seeker, this student, the disciple of Sri Krishna. And he himself says, I find it easier to control the wind than to control the mind. So Sri Krishna, he gives this twofold answer, which we find everywhere: Abhyasa Yoga and Vairagya. We find this in Yoga Sutras. This Abhyasa Yoga is a process by which we simply try to control the mind with the mind. Control the mind with the mind. Now we'll see everything becomes a paradox. We're using that instrument to control something that is the same. So if the mind is restless, how does the restless mind control the mind? We run into these issues and everything. It's like the fox in charge of the chicken coop. But we're told that through practice, that the mind can slowly come under control. So we do this. And many of us have been doing this for years, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, over 50 years. And we wonder, are we any better than we were before at controlling the mind? Because it's such a very difficult type of thing. So then we add this vairagya to it, that there has to be deep feeling of disassociation with the world and worldly things, and there has to be some longing for something higher. So now we start to understand a little bit, and Swami Krishna adds anuraga. That whenever we get this abhyasa and then vairagya, he'll say, no, it's not enough to have dispassion for the world. We have to have tremendous love and longing and passion for God. So we start to understand that the problem in meditation is not with technique, it's not with anything, it's with our own mind and our own attitude and our own understanding. Yeah. So this is why you'll hear today and tomorrow, Sunday, there's so much emphasis on this idea of what are we trying to achieve? How do we understand meditation? Who is meditating? Who is the meditator? And what is the object of meditation? Are these just simply mental exercises? Now, mental exercise, there's nothing wrong with it. We have types of meditation where we're told simply watch the breath. Don't go into any metaphysics or anything like that. Simply watch the breath and try to be the witness. Don't allow other thoughts to come in. These are wonderful types of meditation. But the meditation that we generally do in our tradition has a devotional side to it, and I would say a metaphysical side to it. See, we try to bring in all the aspects. None of us in our tradition practice Raja Yoga as we understand it in the Patanjali Raja Yoga. We take whatever we can from that and incorporate that, but strictly we don't do it. And the meditation from Jnana Yoga, we also don't do this. We let that form a part of our meditation and our spiritual practice, where the mind is constantly practicing analysis, discrimination, vichara. That who is the witness and what are we watching? All of these things. This is I think a helpful part of our meditation. But then we have the devotional aspect, and for most of us, we'll have this concept of mantra and nishta devata. So we know what we have to do in meditation. It's not that somebody will come and give us a technique that they'll say that you're doing it wrong, this and that. The instructions that we get in meditation are very, very simple, that usually at the time of initiation, we get everything that we need. We really don't have to think about too much else, where we know we're trying to focus on the image of the chosen ideal and repeat the mantra and try to concentrate and feel something. Now, the thing is that the mind always will wander, no matter what. No matter what, the mind will wander. If we have some of these other ideas that we could think about what is happening at the time of meditation, then at least it's not wandering to our daily mundane types of things, to issues at work or social relations, all of the different things that the mind goes to. So even though it's very straightforward what we're trying to do in meditation, still there's a lot of scope to let the mind wander around some of these what I'll call metaphysical or even divine types of ideas, and these very important questions that will come up, that who is the meditator and what is the object of meditation, and what is the nature of this witnessing consciousness? Is it God dwelling within? Am I the witness? All of these questions can come up, and they're all healthy questions, and the answer to these questions is absolutely dependent upon our spiritual attitude. There's another point that I want to emphasize very much, that this idea that there's one way to look at things, say the nature of the mind. Now, according to Yoga and Sankhya, mind belongs to nature. It's part of Prakriti. It's composed of parts subtle gunas and everything. And it will reflect the consciousness, the way the sun is reflected in the container of water and all of that. This is one way of looking at it. This is a model. So I like this concept of models that we can use. They're all very helpful models, but they're different models. And if we look at the different schools, there's Dvaita Vedanta, Vishishta Dvaita Vedanta, Dvaita Vedanta. These are all different ways that we have of understanding this relationship between ourselves and God and the world. And it's a question of how helpful they are. It's not a question that one is right and one is wrong. The philosophers argue that way. Sri Ramakrishna was the opposite. He liked all of them. He used to say, this is buffet. I like to eat all the different types of food. Yeah. So he had a different way of looking at all of that. So he used to say this Jaman Bhav Temni Labh, a little Bengali expression, that we gain in accordance with our spiritual mood and attitude and feeling of love. So, because we'll see, I'll talk about a couple of different models, a few different models, how we can look at how the mind functions and consciousness functions and everything that are apparently contradictory. Which one is it? You want to say that the mind is just part of consciousness itself, or you want to say the mind is an instrument and all of that? They're two different concepts. They both can't be true. But if we have to go back to Sri Ramakrishna's understanding, truth is not in philosophy. Truth is not found in even Swamiji says you won't find it in doctrines and dogmas. That it's an experience, and the reality is the reality. The way we understand it, that depends on our particular standpoint, and it's a question of what's helpful for us. So anyhow, this is all to give us a little context for what we'll go through in the next couple of days. So we'll see that there are many different aspects of meditation that will be helpful for us, and many of them have nothing to do with the time of meditation. See, we start to understand that meditation comes out of life itself. That what are we doing throughout the day? Where's our mind going throughout the day? What are the thoughts that we're dwelling on? What is our concept of ourself? If we think that we can just turn on a switch and sit for meditation, then I am the self. I am not this body and mind. And well, we can't do it. So how do we order our life? There's some people who will say, whole lifetime is meant, every waking hour is meant to prepare the mind for that shorter period of time when we sit for meditation. So all different ways of trying to understand these different things. So we start to understand that this meditation cannot be divorced from any aspect of our life. That everything has to be geared around that, and that meditation is the one time when we can put everything into practice. We may have some philosophical understanding. What is the relationship between the lower self and the higher self? What does it mean to be the witness? We may have some philosophical understanding. We get to experiment. Meditation is the experimental period where we try to really understand what is happening at that time. So I want to start with this idea of the mind being an instrument. Now, I don't know how much this appeals to people. To me, it's a kind of an odd concept, to be perfectly honest. Very hard for us to think of the mind without thinking of consciousness and awareness. And this is from this Sankhya point of view, and we can say that it's from a dualistic point of view because it requires some belief in nature, the reality of nature, the three gunas combining to form physical nature, to form mental nature, and for consciousness to somehow be able to access this mental apparatus. So if we think that everything is a combination of the different elements. The Sankhya school likes this idea of gunas. We don't have to worry too much about that. These different elements are combining, and they're also combining in a subtle way to form this mental system, the nervous system and mind and everything. And that consciousness is something that it's everywhere. It's like the sun that shines on everything, but the sun will not, you won't see the reflection of the sun in something that doesn't have some reflective element to it. So if you're outside, you'll see the sun, reflection of the sun in a pond. You won't see it in the meadow. So we'll say that the nature of the water in the pond is a little different, made of still of the elements, but these are subtle things. So according to this doctrine, the consciousness is like the sun. This is called Pratibimbavada. And Thakur likes this very much. As I say, it's an analogy based on dualism, but it also the underlying idea behind it is oneness. We'll get to these things. So this is analogy that Sri Ramakrishna talks about very often. This is something that is absolutely accepted among all schools of Vedanta. This is a curious thing that the Advaitins, they'll also like this. You'll see the Advaitins talking about the mind as composed of the three gunas. So this is why I say this is a model. We can say a realistic model. Doesn't have to be dual. A realistic model where we don't bother. Somebody will say, well, isn't everything consciousness? They said, maybe in the final analysis, we want to analyze everything that way. Everything is Chinmaya. Thakur saw everything that way. But from this ordinary point of view, we make this distinction. There's something that's physical, there's something that's mental, and then there's consciousness. So Thakur gives that illustration that picture a container filled with water and picture the sun, and you see the reflected sun in the water. And according to this doctrine, that reflected sun is distorted because of the nature of the mind being restless or being impure. So two things. So he says if there are ripples on the mind, on the surface of the water, that sun will also have ripples in it. And the materialists will say that this reflected sun on the surface of the water is somehow the result of the water itself. So this is the difference between we say materialist point of view and a spiritual point of view, that if we see a reflected sun and we don't see the sun and we don't know that there is a sun, and maybe we don't even believe that there's a sun. We're built in such a way that we can't lift our heads up to see the sun. We can only see the reflected suns. So naturally we'll think, where did that we won't know it's a reflected sun. We'll see the picture of something that looks round and yellow on the surface of the water. We'll assume that it belongs to the water and it perhaps emerged out of the water. So this is that idea that through years of evolution and DNA and all of that, somehow the mind came into being and then consciousness. But the Vedantic point of view, of course, is that this consciousness is something transcendent and yet can come into contact with it. So the reason for this analogy, what it's trying to explain, is that it's because of the restlessness of the mind that we don't have that clear vision of the self within, or because of the muddied nature of the water. The muddied nature of the water, we can say, is our desires, our passions, all of that. And the other is just this restless nature. So we have this a very nice analogy that if we can somehow make that mind quiet, then we'll have that pure, perfect experience of the nature of the sun, the nature of the self. And somehow we'll understand that it transcends, that it doesn't belong to the water itself. It has its own separate reality. And whatever happens to that reflected sun has no effect on the real sun. And no matter how many reflected suns there are, it doesn't reduce anything from the one sun. It's not like each reflection will subtract something from the sun itself. It's not like a piece of cake that everybody takes a bite out of. It remains unchanged. This is why this is an analogy that's used for Advaita Vedanta, to explain how the one appears as the many, and yet the structure of the analogy is realistic and dualistic. Does that make sense? Yes, okay. So now, the point that I'm trying to make is that we could forget about the philosophy. We can forget about this idea that everything really is consciousness itself. How do we talk about the three gunas, that everything is Brahman? Forget about all of that and accept this as a model. And in Advaita Vedanta, Shankaracharya, he has this idea of what's something that's called vyavaharika, that we simply say, this is the way things seem to be. Ultimately, we can explain it in a different way, a higher way, but this is the way everything seems to be going. This is just the ordinary point of view. In Western philosophy, it's called naive realism. We just accept it. Yeah, we're not going to overanalyze things, and it's very helpful. This is the whole point, that these things become very helpful, and we can start to feel that this consciousness that we're experiencing at the time of meditation is absolute. It has a transcendent source. It's not simply the result of my own mind. See, in Vedanta, the main problem is this confusion of mind and consciousness. That means that when I think of myself, I think of all the qualities that belong to my mind. So I'm a good person, I'm a nice person. I may not be a good person or a nice person, whatever it is, that these belong to the mind itself. And the real I, that is something that is engaged with consciousness as the witness, but as a transcendent source, that sun, which is unaffected by everything else. So this is one way of looking at this, that we think of the mind as the instrument that can be the cause of our restlessness and can also be that which allows us to experience the nature of reality. Now, we start to get into these questions of what is the nature of the self as the witness. Now, what do we mean by the witness? We have this term sakshi. What do we mean by the witness? Who is the witness? If we all have this feeling, I think it's common to everybody, we have this feeling when we're thinking, when we're talking, when we're walking, that there's something that's observing. We have this feeling that we ourselves are the observer. We may feel that. But what is the nature of this witnessing consciousness? This is a question. Yeah. See, in the whole tradition, spiritual tradition of India, this is answered in many different ways. There's not a single answer to all of these questions. Everything depends on a point of view, how we look upon it. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, I am the Sakshi. I am the witness. So we have this. So who was watching whom, if we want to put it that way, at the time of meditation? Who was meditating on whom? Now, if I identify with the mind and with the ego, because we all have the sense of I'm an individual. I'm an individual. I'm the one meditating. And we have that feeling that that object of meditation, we call God, of course, that object of meditation is the witness from a dualistic point of view. So the one who is observing all of this, so from the dualistic or devotional point of view, God dwells within as the witness, and we use this term antaryamin. So not just a witness, but source of support and strength. And whom do we pray to if there's another question? We may engage in prayer, and do we ask ourselves, who are we praying to? And where does that divine presence dwell? And how does our prayer reach there? If we ask these questions, it's not just to overcomplicate things, it's to give us some conviction that there's some meaning to our prayer. So the Vedantic position is that God dwells within, that God is the one who's observing, God is the ultimate witness within. And so that means that that witness will be the object of our meditation as well as the observer of our meditation. Now, it may get too complicated for people. It may not be helpful. We may just confuse ourselves. But other times, these things can be very helpful thoughts to feel that God Himself is meditating within me. That's the real witness, the one who's observing everything. Or that God that I'm meditating on is that witness itself who's observing me, trying to fix my mind on God in the form that I want to worship. So these are, as I say, not meant to confuse, but when we sit, and if these thoughts come to the mind, then it changes the nature of meditation. Yeah, this idea that meditation is something mechanical, is something that only belongs to the mind. This will start to gradually disappear, and we'll feel that God is dwelling within is that divine presence, that as the object of our meditation and present there as consciousness itself. Now, there'll be times when in our meditation, when we'll feel that I am that witness. I am the observer. This is more we can say, Vedantic point of view. That it's not God dwelling within, but it's my very own higher self. See, Swamiji says sometimes, who do you pray to? It's your very own self. Now, it doesn't mean just to our own mind that it's, again, it means that divine presence within, that is the observer that's manifest as our own self, but is also the Son, also transcendent. So these are different attitudes that we can take at different times. Even while we're meditating, even while we're trying to imagine project the image of our chosen deity, chosen ideal, and repeating the mantra, we can still feel that I am observing all of this. I am the witness of all of this. I am unattached. That even that I'm one with that ultimate reality. I have never born. So we can bring in this element of this jnana yoga, if we want to look at it that way. We can easily bring in this other element of bhakti yoga, that very God that I'm meditating on is dwelling within me as that source of peace and joy and strength, antaryami, and will ultimately guide me in the right direction. Antaryami means inner controller. So there are all different ways of looking at this. I have some quotes from Swamiji about this Pratibimbavada, this idea of reflection, because Swamiji talks about it. We know Swamiji to be an Advaitin, they don't mind, this is my point, they don't mind this type of illustration that seems to be material, not realistic. Not materialistic, realistic. So Swamiji says, the mind is like a lake, and every stone that drops into it raises waves. These waves do not let us see what we are. The full moon is reflected in the water of the lake, but the surface is so disturbed that we do not see the reflection clearly. Let it be calm. Do not let nature raise the wave. Keep quiet. Then, after a little while, she will give you up. Then we will know what we are. Now, this other idea that the water gets muddied, and if we can purify that, again the mind, purify that, we can see the gems at the very bottom, everything at the very bottom. Now, does this contradict the other illustration that the sun is being reflected off of the surface? Now we're trying to see to the bottom of the lake. There are different models. This is my whole point. We shouldn't let philosophy get in the way of the usefulness of all of these different types of illustrations. So Swamiji says, another way of looking at this whole thing, the bottom of a lake we cannot see because its surface is covered with ripples. It is only possible for us to catch a glimpse of the bottom when the ripples have subsided and the water is calm. If the water is muddy or is agitated all the time, the bottom will not be seen. If it is clear and there are no waves, we shall see the bottom. The bottom of the lake is our own true self. Yeah, see, now are we switching around here that it's not just the mind, but the real self? We can look at it from this point of view. That's all. The bottom of the lake is our true self. The lake is the chitta, the mind stuff. And the waves are the vrittis, the thought waves. So this is the purpose of having some type of understanding, some type of model, and it could be flexible. As I say, sometimes we'll feel that I am that child of God, sitting trying to meditate on Divine Mother. Sometimes we'll feel that. Sometimes we'll feel that I'm watching the mind. Everything is a function of the mind. And that real I is transcendent beyond everything. So different ways of looking at that. But the main point that I'm trying to make is that we're no longer just saying, now I'm sitting down, now I'm trying to control the mind, now I'm trying to withdraw from the senses, this and that, without any deeper type of context. We can have this feeling, I am that eternal, unchanging witness, separate from the mind, yet functioning through the mind, allowing the mind to function. We can have that type of feeling, or we can even feel that everything is taking place because of the divine presence within. Without that divine presence, there's no consciousness. The mind doesn't function. So we're transferring or transforming this mental exercise into really a real spiritual practice. And the other thing this does is this tendency for the mind to go into that laya state, that torpidity or the sleepy state, something like that. This keeps the mind alert also. With simply repetition of the mantra and everything, sometimes the mind will just, it'll start to drift and everything. So this gives some other thing to interest the mind, we can say, and keep the mind alert and put it into some type of context again. What is our time? Oh, okay. Now, one last thing that I'll leave for tonight. We'll have enough time for questions. Huh? And is that we have a completely different way of looking at all of this, a completely devotional point of view. And this is a very beautiful attitude that we can feel that the time of meditation is when we have our secret rendezvous with the beloved. That this is a time when really we can come face to face. We may not be able to visualize it clearly and everything, but that there's a real type of union that takes place, and that the rest of the day is in wait for this time of union with the beloved. There's one great statement, one of the great statements that Sri Krishna used to make. He used to tell this to Keshav Sen and the members of the Brahmo Samaj. He used to say to them that, I know you don't like all of this Radha Krishna business, all of that stuff. It doesn't appeal to you. I know that you have a different nature, but try to understand and accept and appreciate and assimilate that longing that Radha has for Sri Krishna. Now, in this Vaishnava tradition, they say that Radha had two moods. The one is called Viraha Bhava and the other Milana Bhava. Viraha Bhava is when she's separate from Krishna and counting the seconds. Whole mind is filled with, when will I see my Krishna again? And this Milana Bhava is when they finally get to meet. So the one part of this tradition says that this longing for union with Krishna is greater than the actual union. This Viraha Bhava is greater than Milana Bhava, because the mind is so fixed on it. And she's with him, what's the big deal? Then you're not, but when she's not, there's the whole mind. So this means that throughout the day, that we can have that feeling that when I sit for meditation, there'll be some actual, real connection, real union with the divine. This was the attitude that the direct disciples had with Sri Ramakrishna, and especially that, and all of them, they used to say that second that we left the presence of Sri Ramakrishna, mostly in Dakshineshwar, that our only one thought was that when will we be able to go back again and see him that time. So this does two things. One is that it creates that longing and that feeling that something real is taking place at the time of meditation. And at the time when we really sit for meditation, we can feel that, again, it's not imagination. It's not imagination. And another nice thing in the Vaishnava tradition, this idea of this Nitya Leela. Now, Thakur uses these two terms. I don't mean it in that sense, going from Nitya to Leela and back. This means that this play is going on eternally. So we can feel that Thakur's there. He's sitting in his room waiting for us. That now, right here and now, that is all taking place within the divine realm. Everything takes place within the heart, we can say, or within the cosmic mind, also part of the heart. And when we go there, that we're actually in presence, that it's not, again, it's not imagination. This is the whole point of all this. These are things that we can feel that they're real, and for Sri Ramakrishna, he used to say, far more real than the way I experience things in this ordinary waking state. Far more real, because for him, he had that, of course, direct experience. It was something even greater than that. So we will get to these things a little more, but we have this this very beautiful devotional way of looking at things as well. None of them contradict each other. The Advaitic view, the view of the Jnanis and everything. It's a question of what appeals to us, and different things can appeal to us at different times. That's all. So, yeah, so let me open it up to some questions and things. I can't talk for such a long time. You may not get, you probably get bored, but if you don't get bored, I'll get bored.
Thanks for coming, Swami.
You're welcome.
My name is Cheryl. A little story I kind of tell myself about the Leela that I'm participating in is that when I was initiated, Swami Sarvadevananda introduced me to Ramakrishna in a more formal, than just reading off a book or something. And then it seems to me, or my intuition says that in a way, the form Ramakrishna is introducing me to the formless Divine Mother. And that's just something I tell myself. You have any comments?
Yes. Sri Ramakrishna gives many very helpful analogies with regard to form and formlessness. So one of the nicest and for me the easiest to understand is this idea of the water in very cold regions forming blocks of ice. And that the nature of Brahman is like this water. There's a very interesting point that Sri Ramakrishna very often asked, what is the nature of Brahman? And 99.9% of the time, he says what Brahman is can't be expressed in words. One time he hesitates a little and he tells him, it's like water. Now, what is the nature of water? Is water formless?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Exactly. So this is exactly the answer, that it's formless and yet never comes in a formless form. It can never be found as something. It has to have a form. Even if you take the ocean, that it'll be flat on top and it'll take the shape of the ocean bed. So it always has a form, but the form is something that is temporary. It's something that's secondary, that the real nature of water is formless. Even when it takes a form, it's still formless. One at the same time. Now he gives the other analogy. Usually we think of this analogy for the different religions calling God by different names and different forms. This is a well-known analogy that he gives of people who take water from the same pond, and they all have different areas where they can go and take the water, and the different communities use different words for it. So the Hindus will take a pitcher, and they'll fill the water with a pitcher, and they'll call it jal. The Muslims, they have a kind of sack that they use. They'll fill it with that. They'll call it pani. And he says, the Christians, they'll go and they can take a bucket and they'll fill it and they'll call it water. He knew that English word, water. Yeah. And then he says, are they different? What is the difference between these, what's in all of the containers? That one says God, one says Allah, one says Jehovah. It doesn't matter. It's great that it's all the same. The substance is the same. So we can also understand this with regard to all of our concepts of God and the ways in which we think of God. That it's a combination of subjective and objective. This is the whole point, because he says that the cooling power of one's devotion, Him Shakti, one's devotion, will cause the water to form blocks of ice according to the nature of God that they want to see. So some people will say, this concept of God you have is pure imagination. And the answer to that will be that there's a subjective side, but the reality of it is the reality. It's water, and no matter what shape it takes, it's formless. It's formless with the potential to take form. It never found in nature in the formless sense. So what you're saying, when we meditate on the Ishta Devata, whatever it is, if it's Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, if it's Christ or Buddha, or it doesn't matter, that the reality underlying that is one. The form is different in accordance with what appeals to us. But it's the same water. It's the same ultimate reality there. And it's not simply a function of our imagination. That's the second part to it. Everything that we experience in this world is a combination. That we're all seeing the same thing, assuming that we're not going to start talking about this world as a projection of my mind and everything. We'll assume that we're all living in the same world and seeing the same thing. That we all see the same thing, but we experience things in a personal way, in a different way. That what appeals to one person, somebody, say music, for example, that somebody is listening to some classical music, and they have no appreciation for it. They just walk in the room and it's a jumble of sound, or jazz. How can you listen to that? Where's the tune, this and that. Somebody who knows about it, they'll say, this is fantastic. Same thing, same thing. So they're hearing the same notes and sounds and everything, or a painting, seeing the same painting, but their experience is very much different, dependent upon the nature of their mind and their understanding and everything.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Raj, I have a question. Thank you so much. Your talk was very sweet, but I'm a little confused. So, are you saying when we are trying to meditate on an object, we take our mind off the object and try to think who is witnessing the object of our meditation?
No.
Okay.
Okay, good. I'm glad you brought that up. That this is something that we can think about even before we sit for meditation. So we have some conviction, we have some idea of what's taking place in meditation. Or if the mind starts to wander, this is when this is very helpful to keep it from going to worldly things. But the main thing is to stick with that repetition of mantra and trying to focus on the image of the chosen deity, chosen ideal. But at the same, see, the mind is complex. The mind is complex. We can be repeating the mantra and the mind is still wandering all over the place, do other things. This projection and visualization is something that is very, very difficult for, I would say, most people. There may be some people who have a photographic memory or something, but for most people, it's completely different from the repetition of the mantra, which everybody can do. Everybody can do that. In fact, the mental repetition of the mantra and the repetition out loud are not very different. Even when we do it silently, we have a cadence to it. We have our own accent that we speak in. Everything is almost identical. But difference between seeing something and closing our eyes and trying to picture something completely different. In fact, I have this theory that we really can't, there's no such thing as visualization. We're basically remembering what it was like when we saw something. And each time we see something, we're creating it. It would be nice if we could paint a picture in the mind and simply see it. But internal visualization, internal hearing are two completely different things. So anyhow, the point is that this is not to replace that attempt to visualize and that concentration and all of that. This is something that can appeal to the mind at a certain time. Well, see, we can do all sorts of just every once in a while. We're meditating on Sri Ramakrishna, for example. It let me think, what would it be like to be Sri Ramakrishna? What would be like? What is the nature of his mind? What does the world look like? What is it like for him to be sitting there in samadhi? It's a meditation, a very nice type of meditation. We'll have these lila dhyanas. We can have Thakur getting up and sing and dance, do all sorts of things. So that we have to give scope for some variety in meditation because of the inability of the mind to sit for a long period of time focused simply on that visualization and repetition of the mantra. And this is when these things become helpful and give us some conviction that we've entered into a spiritual realm, that this isn't just all mental projection and all. Not that has a role to play. As I say, this is say vipassana meditation and everything. That can also lead to some type of higher experience where we feel ourselves to be the witness and everything. But from this devotional point of view, devotional and philosophical point of view, combining all of it together, that these can be helpful aids for us. And as I said in the beginning, if they're not, then forget it. Then stick with, the things that exactly what we're told to do at the time of initiation. But we'll find almost all of you read the different things that our direct disciples said about meditation. Tremendous scope, especially for the Lila Dhyana. We'll get to that. Many of them will emphasize that our Swami, the Paramashananda, especially the disciple of Holy Mother, constantly talking about that picture Sri Ramakrishna as a young boy playing with his friend, all of these different things. The whole meditation can go through that. And at the end of the period, that will feel that I forgot where I was. I was living in a different realm. It was real that I was. So, and then we start to understand the importance of this type of meditation. And another thing, we'll start to understand what is taking place with regard to inner transformation. And we'll start to see we're becoming less identified with his mind, that we're seeing ourselves in a relationship with God, that if we're lucky, that we start to take on the qualities of the object of our meditation. This transference, that Thakur said that you're all heirs to my kingdom, that whatever wealth I've accumulated, it goes to the children. Who else will it go to? So all of those spiritual qualities. So this goes to another point, that when we meditate on the chosen ideal, that it's not just the name, it's not just the image. There's something called guna. This lila and guna, these other things, that the qualities and characteristics and the loving nature and everything. Say we meditate on Holy Mother. If we really we know who we're meditating on, we may say Divine Mother. Okay, good, we accept that. But there's just the personality that has to be part of the meditation, and that loving nature that she had, and that all-embracing type of love that she had, that should grow in our own hearts as a result of this. But unless we can feel that it's a real presence, a real divine presence within, we won't get the full results of this. This is any other point that I'm trying to make here.
Thank you very much.
We're going to go through the whole next 3 sessions just with all of these questions.
Thank you, Maharaj. That was a beautiful talk. My name is Vinita. So I trying to understand contemplation. I was is there a process where it is you go from confused and negative thoughts to clear and positive thoughts, and then you move from positive to slow, and then slow to no? And is that a kind of progression in meditation?
Yeah, see, so far we've been talking about meditation. It's a kind of an ideal. The actual reality of meditation is that all sorts of unwanted thoughts may come into the mind also. And sometimes we're even shocked at how old things come up, old arguments we had with people, different feelings of hurt and anger will come up. Sometimes we sit for meditation and we get very angry. How could that person say that? That these are things that, again, require some analysis. This is I keep driving this point, that it's not enough to simply say that I shouldn't think about these things, or just leave it alone, everything. But analyze these things belong to the mind, not to me. They belong to the mind, not to me. And when we do that, we find that it takes a little the sting out of it, and we can disidentify with these things and tell ourselves this was the old me, that I'm not like that anymore. But this is a stage, and it's not that we finish that and go to the next and the next and the next and the next. Even after meditating for decades, There'll be times when something comes into the mind that we'll remember some old thing or some unwanted thought will come up. We have to look at it, little bubble that's coming up to the surface, and let it go and finish with it. Not to invite it, not to nourish it. Sometimes we sit in meditation, we see these thoughts that come in, or they may be uninvited thoughts. We may not want them, but we let them hang around because we enjoy them. Yeah, we have to understand that. Even getting angry, there's some enjoyment in getting angry sometimes, mentally, inside. Otherwise, we won't do it. We won't do it. If it be the fact that we do it means that there's some very I don't know what the word is for it. Well, odd, negative type of desire to maybe even sadistic type of thing or masochistic type of thing. So, perverse. Good. Yeah, we can say perverse. Yeah, some perversity of the mind that enjoys these types of things. Yeah. So if we understand, see, I've been talking all along understanding the nature of consciousness and everything, but also understand the nature of the mind, and the nature of the mind to store all of these things. And sometimes we're better off that they come to the surface at the time of meditation. Otherwise, they remain hidden, and they inform decisions and attitudes and everything without our knowing about it. So sometimes these are positive things. We don't want to spend our time in meditation self-analyzing, but still, these are helpful, and sometimes even in meditation, we can take stock. How much have we gained through our practice? How much have we changed? Are we less quick to get angry and all of these things? So, but these are natural things that will come up. I don't know about this progression you're talking about. To me, the one sure thing is that devotion grows. I don't know how many of you knew Swami Swahanandaji. No, he's been gone a long time. That was one of his favorite statements. He said, the real fruit of meditation is devotion. We think after years of meditation, we're learning concentration of mind. And no, we may, of course, we want to get better with concentration, but this devotion will grow. And that means that some inner transformation is taking place, which should also kill out some of these old things. See, these old samskaras, we have to recognize them. We have to have a desire to change. We have to realize they're not helpful. And so meditation from that point of view, when these things come up, is helpful to analyze these things a little bit. Holy Mother made a very wonderful statement. She had a disciple, this Swami Arupanandaji. He was really her closest disciple, monastic disciple. She used to say to him, when I come back, you have to come back with me. Yeah. So he was like the Ishvara Koti, like the direct disciples. Anyhow, he said to her once, Mother, when I sit for meditation, all these little desires come into the mind. And she said, very good. Let them come to the surface of mind and let them disappear. The more the better, but then drop them. Don't cling to them and don't hold on to them. Just let them go. So, yeah, this mind will never become perfect. It'll never become perfect. And it doesn't have to become perfect. At some point, this grace will take over. This something will pull us out of all of this. Yeah, we can do it all through our self-effort. Meditation, one way of looking at it, meditation is meant to reveal to us the very limited capacity of the mind to attain to some state of perfection. And then we reach a state of surrender and reliance on God. They call it Sharanagati. Yeah. So this is meditation. Partly it's like the bird on the mast of the ship. It has to fly in every direction. His wings are exhausted and tired. And then he says, wherever the ship takes me, I'll go. then there's the end of all problems. So yeah, meditation is never easy, but we can have glimpses in meditation. We can have periods of meditation where we feel tremendous joy, and we can feel that, and we should feel that no meditation is wasted. That we may say, oh, it was a bad meditation. Mine was wandering the whole time. The mere fact that we're willing to sit and put up with that, and that even that is something wonderful, and nothing goes in vain. So we have to understand that if we start out with this idea that day by day I'll be able to concentrate the mind more, that I'll go really from this different stages, pratyahara to dharana to dhyana, and then one day to samadhi, then it's a fool's errand. This is all very nice from a theoretical point of view. We appreciate it. We can learn from it. We know what we're trying to do. But the practical point of view for 99.9% of the people is that let this mind dwell, let it soak up this divine presence within, and let it become transformed.
Meditation and something else at the same time. So, for instance, when people practice music, they say they're in a meditative mood, and that practice takes them deeper towards better understanding.
Yes. This shouldn't replace our regular meditation, but everything can become a type of meditation. We want to keep a meditative mood with whatever we do, but it shouldn't replace it. If we've been given certain instructions, and we should have a fixed time and a place and everything, and follow the instructions. After that, then we're free. If we want to look upon, we sit, listen to some music, or we can do all sorts of meditations. Say with spiritual reading. Yeah, for the past, I don't know how many years, 30, 40 years or something, I don't read any philosophical things unless I have to. I read all of these reminiscences, accounts of the direct disciples, or some of the teachings, some of the, say, Swami Bhuteshanandaji. I'm very fond of his beautiful way of interpreting things. These things, they soothe the mind, and they put the mind in a meditative mood. And for me, the most important thing is the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That if we immerse ourselves in that, that becomes a meditation, and that becomes our mindset throughout the day. That part of the mind is always dwelling in Dakshineswara with Sri Ramakrishna. Yeah, we have this one verse from chapter 12 in Gita, that Sri Krishna is saying that if you can fix your mind on me, fix your intellect in me, then he says, you'll dwell within me. Yeah, from here on, no question about that. So this is the question, where do we live? Do we live where the physical body is? We live where the mind is. So if throughout the day and in our spiritual reading, that we keep the mind fixed with this lila and all these divine thoughts and everything, then that's where we dwell. And when we sit for meditation, yeah, we sit for meditation. We don't dwell in the room where we're sitting. Wherever the mind takes us, that's where we dwell. That's where we're living. So yeah, we want to try to make everything, if not a meditation, at least helpful for meditation. And when we're working in the world, do everything as an offering, do everything with some sense of discrimination, that even some type of feeling that I'm doing everything as a servant of God, something like that, have some spiritual attitude. Yes, let's make this the last question, and then there'll be plenty of time for tomorrow. But let me hear the question first.
Thank you, Swamiji. So When I sit for meditation, it is that of a servant and the Lord. So it's a very dualist kind of meditation where I'm serving the Lord, I'm taking care of him, and so on. So once I get out of the meditation, the dual feeling still remains. He's up there, he's a Paramatma, I'm the Jivatma. How do I reconcile that with the I am Brahman? And how do I continue that outside of the meditation? Because the
Yes.
meditation is very, for me, it feels he's up there and I'm down here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See, you can have this feeling, the servant of God, child of God, but still not up there, within the heart. Within the heart. Now, the first thing we have to do is get rid of this idea that dualism is a dirty word. That as soon as somebody says, "Oh, that's dualistic," that we have to reject it. There's something horrible about it. That for Swami Krishna, he said that as long as we feel ourselves to be an individual, have the sense of I, and he says everybody has it. And Bhagavad Gita says the same thing. As long as we have that type of feeling, then this relationship becomes the most important thing for us. As Swami Krishna emphasized this, it's called bhava. And have some type of relationship with God. They're all different. Think of God as the mother, think of God as a child, as the beloved, as a friend. Yeah, servant to master. All of these different relationships are possible. And do they contradict this idea that I am Brahman? Okay, now, one of the favorite verses of Sri Krishna is something that is attributed to Hanuman. You'll all recognize this. Attributed to Hanuman, that Hanuman entered into the court of Rama one time, and Rama asked him, "How do you look upon me?" So he gave this brilliant answer. He said, Deha buddhya, if I think of myself as the body, tu dasoham, then you're the master, I am the servant. Then jiva buddhya, if I think of myself as an individual soul, then twadangshaka, then you're the whole and I'm a part of you. And he says, but atma buddhya, if I think of myself as the Atman, then you and I are one and the same. So all the question of what is our state of mind at the time. I can understand and I can experience at the time of meditation also that there's no reality to this I, this ego sense. It's just an idea. I can see that in meditation. That I try to find where's the I in consciousness. I won't find it. And Thakur says, next minute it comes back. He says, yeah, you can analyze 1,000 times, he says. 1,000 times. The next minute it comes back. You cut this huge Ashwatha tree, huge tree. Very next day you'll see new sprouts coming up. Yeah. So he says, utilize it. He says, if the ego is going to remain, then let the rascal remain as the servant of God. Yeah. So there's no harm. It doesn't contradict. It's not that there are different attitudes that Hanuman has that we can all have. When he feels that I am that self, then there's no distinction whatsoever. But the stick of ego comes giving a sense of separation. Thakur says, utilize it. Don't simply keep saying, no, I'm not this, I'm not that, and everything. That only a very rare few can be successful with that. He said, utilize it. Have a relationship with God. So no contradiction, really, just looking at it from a different point of view.